Okay, so we're on to part 2 of Nezhda the White. We're on to painting. If you want to see the video on priming and prep, go ahead and check out part 1. So now that we're primed and prep, I'm going to do a little bit of airbrush base coat on the model. We're doing a little burnt sienna here, and I'm going to continue on with the zenithal pattern of spraying that burnt sienna in all the deep bases, the deep corners of the model, and then I'm going to spray. I'm actually going to end up using pale flesh to highlight this model. And the funny thing is, this actually brings me right back to where I was when I went ahead and primed the model. So it looks very similar. It's just more of an earthy, fleshy, I guess a more natural, warmer tone. And that's fine. I can work with that. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and start with painting the eyes and face. Okay, so onto the eyes and the face. I'm going to start by painting in the whole orbit, basically the eye and surrounding areas with black gray. That's a normal thing. Just I want to bring a little shadow to the eye, a little definition to the eye. So I'll use either black gray or heavy sienna. It just depends on the model. This model I'm going to go with super kind of cool skin, so the black gray is going to work out fine. So again, you want to paint the whole area. Don't worry too much about making mistakes at this point. I'm going to come in now with some dragon white, and I'm going to paint in the eye. So now we're going to paint in the eyeball proper. So we do want to be a little bit more careful in this step, and you can see I'm using a very small brush when I'm doing that. This is probably one of the more intricate parts of painting the model. This is the part that frustrates a lot of people. So again, this is just patience and practice gets you that. If you have a steady hand, then great. I don't, so you can see my hands shaking from time to time. The other thing to point out too is when you're doing the white, you can do it a few times just to make sure that you get the white in. Finally, I'm dotting in the eyes. I went back in with black gray, and again, this is precision part. You would just want to make sure the general shape of the eye is good, and that the placement of the pupils is fair. You want to have them towards the center, more towards the nose, almost like slightly cross-eyed towards the nose, and that's going to work out just fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut around the face, because I need to trim down all that black around the eye. So now I'm using heavy skin tone from Vallejo Game Color, and that's just going to help define the face. So like I was saying, I'm going for a cool skin on this miniature, almost like a frozen looking skin, a little supernatural, but I'm going to start with regular skin. I'm going to start with regular warm skin, and I typically do that with an undercoat of heavy skin tone. The heavy skin tone covers very well, so it's going to allow me to cover up the black that overran parts of the eye and trim it down. If I need to go back and do any sort of readjustment at this point, I can totally do that. I'm going to take that heavy skin tone, and I'm going to mix it. I'm going to start blending it up, and this is where your skin tone differences may change. In this case, like I said, we're going for like frozen skin, so I am blending in pale flesh with this heavy skin tone. Pale flesh is definitely it's a very, very white color, so I'm going to start blending that in. You can see I think that right there, but that's really only the second coat. Here comes the mix of pale flesh with the heavy skin tone, and I'm just going to start highlighting the more raised areas of the model, and that will start to bring in the definition. Again, more undercoating with the heavy skin tone, and then I'm going to start to blend that up as well with pale flesh. Painting skin usually is going to be several layers, and you want to go very, very thin layers, and each time you bring up your color a little bit lighter, because you're going to add a little bit more pale flesh to this mix, then you start going higher, basically higher and higher on the model. So you can see as I'm highlighting the fingers there, the the face, when you're painting these highlights in, for example, you would highlight the nose, you'd highlight the tops of the cheeks, you'd highlight the tops of the breasts there. So that's the idea. What I'm doing now is I'm actually going to apply a little bit of like a purple lips to the model, and I use that. I take some violet, mix it in with the heavy skin tone, and then just carefully paint the lips in. You want the top lip to be a little bit wider than the bottom lip, and you mix it. You always mix anything you're going to put on the face. Always mix it with the base skin color. Otherwise, it just looks too stark and it looks weird. So we're going to continue with the highlighting, and again, when this is done, this is going to start to look more. The skin will start to look more and more pale. I spend the majority of the painting process on the face and the skin. It's the most important. Really, the adage is faces and bases, right? Faces and bases really bring the model out. And with faces, it's going to be about, you know, getting the eyes in convincingly enough. You don't have to be absolutely perfect with the eyes, but you want to be convincing that, hey, they're there, and that the model has at least a little bit of life, we'll say, with the eyes. And then the basing and the skin tone. So with skin tone, particularly pale skin tones, I do a lot of layers. So we're going to let that final highlight dry for a little bit, and then I'm gonna start to kind of cool down the face a little bit. And here's where it gets a little bit weird. So I'm gonna take some of this Andrea blue, mix it with some glaze medium, and make a very thin, translucent glaze out of it. Okay, and so this glaze is gonna give us a little bit of a tone. I'm gonna use this more like a shade, and you can see I'm putting it there on the face, and I'm gonna apply a small amount of it, and then just draw it towards the shadows. Okay, so I'm gonna start off in the high points of the face, and then I'm gonna start painting towards the edges, the darker, lower parts of the face. So I'm actually painting towards the hairline and towards the bottom of the face, and I'm going to pull that color with me and let that color kind of build in the shadow while leaving a tinge, while leaving a nice little transition on the top. And you can see right there, I'm painting a little crevice from the cleavage, and I'm going to draw that color into that crevice. I'm going to draw the color into the crevice, and I'm going to draw it into the edges where the skin meets the clothing of the model. You can see I'm doing it there on the fingers as well. So with painting skin, you often start with your base color or your undercolor, and then as you're starting to do the glazes, you start with the shades and draw them in and down. So now I'm going to move up. I'm going to go to a foul green. So I have blue and then a green, and I'm going to do the same thing with the green and kind of not drag it as far into the crevice. And the green is going to sit on top of the blue shadow, and it's going to be translucent enough to let the skin color in. And that's really what's going to give me the cold skin effect of the model, is that blue with the green on top and the skin, the warmer skin tone below showing through. Okay, so once you're done there, like I can leave that there, but I want to go a little bit higher, so I can apply another highlight at the end of it. Like I could take pale flesh and just apply that highlight. I think I'm okay with it where it is, so I leave it there. Instead, I decide to go ahead and start painting the center of the kind of the leather corset there, and I'm going to paint that glacial blue with an intent to kind of draw it towards white. Okay, so that's when you're painting a miniature, you start at the inside, the innermost layers of the model, and work your way out. So in this case, it's going to be face, skin, and then undershirt, overshirt, overcloak. That's generally how you approach these models when you're painting. Right now I'm painting the pants in, and I'm painting those in a green-brown color. I'm going to use a lot of browns on this color. I'm sorry, on this miniature, and we're going to use different browns, different shades of browns, because this is kind of a tribal look, but the skin is really going to call out the fact that, hey, this is kind of a northern tundra type shaman. Okay, so that's where I'm going there. I've switched browns at this point, and I've went from green brown to beige brown. So now I'm going with a more red in the brown, and beige brown is a very versatile color for me. I think like snakebite leather might be the Citadel equivalent or something. And you can see I'm starting to paint the horns in. I'm starting to paint in some of the larger leather areas, this beige brown, and we're gonna just like work with all these different browns and kind of blend them in together. So here we go, starting to do the tabard, the boots. There's going to be a lot of beige brown on this model, and the cool thing about beige brown, like I said, you can use it for leather, you can actually use it to undercoat even like non-metallic gold, and it's good for that. And I'm using it for wood as well, painting in the staff here. Now the staff is cool because it's basically just wood with a bunch of like bones strapped to it. So it's actually pretty easy to paint as long as you understand what colors to pick. And again, we're going to continue on with more of this beige brown, and I'm applying it to the pelt now. And I'm going to purposely paint the pelt patchy. In other words, I'm not going to just cover the whole thing. I'm going to leave some of the areas lighter, some of the areas darker, and we'll work with that in a minute. Right now, I'm starting to work on some of the shadow of basically the underside of that pelt, and we're back in with heavy sienna. So a whole lot of browns going down on this model, and we're just going to kind of treat them differently. We're going to start shading them differently. We may wash them differently, and then that's going to determine the various looks of the model, but everything is going to blend, which is cool. Right now I'm going in with Iraqi sand and a little bit of bone white. Some of these areas starting to do some highlights. Right? Okay. So she's color blocked. Let's start working on some of the other effects. It's got a little bit of like a bone circlet there. So that fur, she's got the leather, and then she's got like a fur lining around the leather, and then she has a pelt. So now I've taken some Iraqi sand, and I'm going to do a dry brush. Okay, so for those of you who aren't aware, dry brush is where you take a brush that's got soft, kind of heavier bristles. You put that in the paint, and then you wipe 90% of that paint off, and then you just sort of lightly go against the grain of the model. The solids of the paint will pick up on the raised surfaces of the model, and it's going to end up sort of highlighting things for you. So you can see with the Iraqi sand there, I'm picking the tops of the horns, the trophy, the back trophy, and the staff, and it's starting to pick up the light at the right angle there. Okay, and just a couple little undertones there of green brown for some of the bracelets. Sorry, this is kind of out of frame here, but now I've gone up to bone white, and I'm doing a selective dry brush. So I'm just picking the tops of those areas, like the tops of the horns, the tops of the trophy rack. I'm picking specifically the bones on the staff, and you can see the bones on the staff are starting to show up as a different color. That's what I was talking about. Like, we're going to use beige brown as like the undertone in this case, and then dry brush with Iraqi sand, and then finally up to bone white. This is the final like super highlight here, and this is just plain old white. And I've done that on the tips of the horns, and I'm doing that on the hair, and then also catching. This isn't what you call a dry brush. This is an overbrush where you're just trying to catch the topmost edges of the fur lining. So you can see that's showing up there, and even like the very tip. The pieces of bone, like the tips of the teeth, the very edges of the horn, that's all going on there. Okay, so more of that white coming down, and I'm going to pick the top of the pelt. And you can see just more of it on the horn, the little claws that are sticking out of the pelt, and again all the tips of the bones. So we're just really kind of just adding definition to the model. Right now, I'm going in with a wash. So now I'm using Agrax Earth Shade. This is a really versatile wash. A lot of painters use this. You can use this to shade reds, browns, even greens. It's just a nice kind of all-purpose shade. It's perfect for this because it's going to make the leather look like leather. It's going to get into the crevices of the staff make it look like a wooden staff. And we're going to use that in the shadows as well. I think I also end up using it on the base itself. So the base, you can see, is this kind of a basalt gray and a little bit of sienna again, and that's going to make it look like this wash is actually going to blend all that together and kind of give it this dull, kind of rustic appearance. So there it goes. It's on the base as well. And again, I'm sorry, this is off camera. I was actually doing a live stream while recording onto my hard drive, so I'm kind of chatting with the people that are watching live and trying to record this at the same time. Let's go to basing. So the basing was done, a lot of it early. We're going to add a few details to kind of cap off this miniature. We're going to use these Army Painter flowers and tufts. And these are great to use, and you can pick them up at Comic Quest where we're doing the paint day. I highly recommend them because they just take your basing up to that level, and it just looks fantastic. So you can see just a couple of beads of glue, and you just use tweezers and put them in paste. Now I'm making a paste out of Army Painter, their snow effect, with some Mod Podge. You can use Mod Podge or you can use watered down Elmer's glue. And I'm applying that because I want, again, this is a tundra type miniature, so I'm applying some snow. I'm even taking it, and you can see I'm just kind of allowing some of it to catch on the top of the grass tuft there, as if there's like snow on there. That's basically it for the model. The only thing left to do is to paint off the lip of the base itself. So I'm painting black, and again, I gotta apologize, like it was getting late towards the night, and I was answering questions and trying to wrap up this model. But that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.